Hey there guys, Conceptual Concept 6.9 here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest, and today I wanted to go over choosing a 5.56 AK for your primary fighting rifle in the United States. Now, why the United States? Well, because it's the only country I really have experience with, and I think it's very applicable to this conversation. Now, I'm going to go ahead and annotate Lemon Grenade's video, M26 Lemon Grenade. He did a video, I believe it was a few days ago, saying why you shouldn't choose a 5.56 AK and why they suck. And he had some incredibly valid arguments that I really can't fault him for. I just have my own perspective. I have my own point of view here, and I wanted to add that on because I do think that these can have a role just depending on a few different scenarios. And I do want to add my own thoughts to the points he made, which again, incredibly good. M26 Lemon Grenade has forgotten more about AKs than I'll probably ever know. So there's that. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. We'll get into the points he made and then my thoughts on them as well. And then I'm going to add a few other things to the mix. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So one of the points he made, which there was some misunderstanding on the internet, people need to calm themselves down, is that the AK was not designed for a straight wall cartridge. What he meant was a straight walled cartridge. Now 5.56 is a tapered cartridge, but it is a much less drastic angle than both 5.45 and 7.62 by 39. And as a person with deductive reasoning, I was able to figure that out myself. I didn't get my panties in a bunch. But his point was, you were trying, the angle that the round feeds into the chamber is a little more drastic, so it can cause some reliability issues. 5.56 AKs aren't quite as reliable as 7.62 AKs or 5.45 AKs, and that's just due to exactly what he said. However, they have executed it incredibly well. You look at the Baril, it works very, very well. It's a pretty tried and tested 5.56 AK, and can't really fault it for that. Another point he made was magazine compatibility, even among 5.56 AKs. Absolutely. Yeah, 5.56 AKs are kind of smorgasbord. Not all of them are plug and play like 7.62 and 5.45 guns. But this is going to be something I'm probably going to repeat several times through this video. My personal belief is you shouldn't count on being able to acquire things when shit goes down regardless. So you should probably have a stockpile. In which case, the magazine deal, in my opinion, is a moot. Am I wrong? Maybe. I don't know. But personally, in my opinion, you should have your magazines stocked up. You shouldn't count on being able to, you know, acquire them through foraging or scavenging or any of that crap. You should just be prepared. You should have enough magazines for yourself. Next was everyone else is running ARs. If you have to form a group with the local dads in the neighborhood, everyone else is running ARs. And that is dead nuts accurate. I can't argue with that at all. Chances are, regardless the group you're involved with, they're going to be running ARs. So only thing this gains you is ammunition compatibility. But let's say you run dry in the middle of a firefight or in the middle of where you might need to borrow some ammo from a buddy. Guess what? You can't. It doesn't fit in here. And I know they make AKs with AR inserts, but I have not heard great things about their functionality. So I don't quite trust them. I just stick with the Rock and Lock magazines personally. So the next point he made was that these do not readily accept modern optics, and he's absolutely right. They don't come straight from the factory able to equip everything. Even this Stava with its tiny Picatinny rail, if I wanted to run a scope or I wanted to run a ACOG or a magnifier, I'd have to get an entirely different dust cover. His other point he made was dust cover rails don't hold zero for shit. I'm on the fence on this one. Some of them don't, and I completely agree with him there. My B33, my Zenitco, has held up incredibly well. I'm nearing 8,000 rounds on it, I'd guess by now. and 0-0 shift. I'm also testing the Gen 3 Texas weapon systems. I'll have a full review on that, but so far it's working pretty well. Again, I'm only 500-ish rounds in on that, so I can't really speak with authority to that, but I've taken it off to clean and do other things with the AK, and it returned to 0 just fine. So another point he makes is that to fully kit one of these guns out, make it a modern gun that takes modern accessories, you're going to be able to buy 2 to 3 pretty solid ARs for that price, or get one AR kitted out entirely versus this just being a bare bone gun. I actually agree with him in most ways for that. He's absolutely right. Hand ARs are America's rifles. So, yes, you can definitely get a decent AR and kit it out pretty well for the price of one of these. That being said, getting a good AR, the price difference isn't that drastic. You get a BCM or a Daniel Defense, you're gonna be right at the price point of the stock gun, and then you'll have to buy the accessories, granted. Or even more expensive, like the Daniel Defenses are well over $2,000 right now. Now, depending on the gun, it might not be up to the same quality. So I would say Polish Beryl on up is kind of the same quality margin as a Daniel Defense. The QC is good, the parts and components are solid, will last you a lifetime, all that good stuff. But very solid point there. You can definitely get a really, really good AR for the same price or cheaper than most 5.56 AKs brought to modern standards. So another point he brings to the table is maintenance. So replacement parts are much less available. They're not consistent, they're not uniform, and replacing the barrel is an issue. So I'm gonna go over a few different things on this. Replacement parts, my very, very strong opinion is that regardless of what rifle you're running an AR-15, you're running a Bren, you're running an AK, you're even running an AKM, do not rely on luck for your parts to become available. You should probably buy extras. Personally, my go-to is my Arsenal SLR 107CR. And I'll be honest, I have 2 extra bolts, I have extra recoil springs, extra triggers, extra grips, various extra parts, where if something breaks, I am able to repair that. Now, the next section is replacing the barrel. He's absolutely right. You're not gonna be able to do that in your shop unless you have good know-how. You really know what you're doing. And even then, you're gonna have to rely on electricity because you do have to drill the holes to set the pins for the gas block, the barrel, the rear sight block, the front sight block. You have to do all of the above. So let's even take it up a notch. You're probably not going to be able to, even if you have the tools, unless you have a really, really good energy supply, which a lot of us don't, let's be real. So definitely agree with him on the barrel. The spare parts, I'm not gonna rely on luck to find spare parts when shit goes south. Personally, I'm just gonna have them on hand. Like I said, I have several spare bolts. So I really think as any firearm owner, even an AR-15 owner, you should have spare parts because you can't rely on luck to find those. So lastly, on the points he made that I wanted to address is the Rock and Lock. He said, he kind of made it sound like he hated Rock and Lock, thought it was garbage. My personal opinion is quite the opposite, but I've been running AKs since I was 16 years old. Very familiar with the system. Rock and Lock feels like home. Something I really like about Rock and Lock is that once you hear that click, it is definite. It's in, you're good to go. Last year, I spent about 6 months training on an AR-15, and I'll tell you, my least favorite part was the magazine system because you could definitely download those magazines to 28 rounds, but regardless whether you did or didn't, you had to tap at the bottom to make sure it was in. Open bolt, absolutely, it's easier to seat that magazine, but ideally you're managing your ammunition, doing tactical reloads. So this was filmed pretty early in me trying to train with ARs, and you can see how freaking embarrassing it is. I dumped the magazine 2 or 3 times because I didn't tap and make sure it was inserted all the way. And this absolutely would not have happened if I had a Rock and Lock magazine. That click, you're in, you're good to go. So, again, this is a training issue, and this is just personal preference, but 100% I definitely prefer the Rock and Lock magazines. So, given everything presented, I'm really inclined to agree with him. You probably should pick an AR-15 for your shit hit the fan, end of day only rifle. AR-15 makes a lot more sense than an AK. Arguably, it makes more sense than an AKM in 7.62x39 as well. But I'm going to throw some caveats here. A few reasons to justify why you might want to do it. One of the bigger ones personally around here is it gets really cold, and at night it drops into the negatives. Shooting with friends with night vision, I have seen dozens of ARs seize up once it drops below 10 degrees, and these are guys who maintain their rifle. So now during those drills, I've seen them be able to pick it back up, but ARs really struggle in cold weather, especially once you get into the negatives. Seen it time and time again. AKs, even the 5.56 AKs, I've run this for a couple shoots as well in negative degree weather. This guy held up incredibly well. It shot very, very well. It didn't seize up, didn't have any jams. And I'd really like to refer to the Alaska State Trooper report on weapons that worked in sub-zero conditions. I'll annotate that somewhere in the description down below. They did a really strong test on it. Turned out only AK style rifles passed the test. I believe it was the Galil and the Valmet that passed the test for the cold weather performance. Everything else tatered. So if you're in really cold climates, this might not be a bad idea. Next reason would be, honestly, if you run AKs a lot. Personally, I run AKs quite a bit. I spent 6 months, as I mentioned previously, trying to get familiar with the AR, and I'm still fighting the desire to run it. I just don't vibe with it very well. Now that being said, I really should just train more, get good, right? But I just personally am not comfortable with one still, not to the degree that I'm comfortable with an AK. And lastly is if you're gonna really neglect your rifle. I'm not saying dump it in mud, because we all know after the multiple tests, ARs do better in mud. But I mean put thousands and thousands of rounds through your gun without cleaning. The AK might be for you. My arsenal is at about 8,000 rounds without a drop of oil in it, still running strong. So AKs just hold up better than that, better to that. But all that being said, everything M26 Lemon Grenade has its merits. Really weigh it out. I really think for 99.9% of people, the AR-15 is probably the best option, like Lemon Grenade said. So past that, don't forget to go outside, touch grass, and eat ass, and I'll see you next time, guys.